Hi there and welcome back. My name is Sheldon MacLeod. This is Thinking Out Loud. It's presented to you here exclusively on the Saltwire Network. I've been fortunate enough many times over the years to interview David Suzuki and wanted to drop his name, so to speak. There was a news release that I got last week. David Suzuki famously said of the climate crisis, "We're in a giant car heading towards a brick wall and everyone's arguing over where they're going to sit." It's a great quote, and it kind of sums up this narrative, this conversation that has been more top of mind over the last number of years. And well, the reason I'm talking about it today is because that release that I'm talking about is celebrating its 30th anniversary. Atlantic Books today launches its fascinating fall 2022 edition with a keen focus on the environment and a number of stories, a number of, highlights of books that focus on the environment. And that's what it's kind of about. And there is an editor's message here. And that editor speaks to some of his background as a professional environmentalist, someone who has been a part of that community. And he is also the editor of Atlantic Books Today. And Chris Benjamin, so nice to see you again. How are you?
Great to see you, Sheldon. Thanks for having me. I'm well.
I have to ask, first of all, this seems to be, and it sounds like one of the more action-packed editions that you really you jammed a lot in here. Tell me, first of all, what the focus of the magazine, the website is primarily. What is its focus?
Its focus is local books and local authors, and that's our raison d'etre. You know, we're all about promoting local books and authors. We're a product of the Atlantic Publishers Marketing Association, which is dedicated to obviously publishing books, both local authors and other authors. And I think it's a too well-kept secret that we're trying to expose, that we have a lot of really amazing books that come out of this region, like over 100 per book season. And we try to highlight as many as possible and draw attention to them and talk about them and have a good conversation about them, because they're really good and they're about fascinating things and they're by excellent authors and very smart people and excellent writers. So it's something we want people to know about and read.
It would seem to me, as someone who's not directly involved in that industry, but in speaking to authors and people who put their life's work into print, that the industry seems to be in a pretty good place in the Maritimes. Am I wrong?
I think you're right. I think the industry's doing well. I think, the pandemic was tough on everybody, including publishers, but then what posed a lot of initial challenges in terms of how to distribute books and get them into people's hands ended up being a good problem to have. One of the few good things from the pandemic, I'd say, was that people were at home more and looking to read more and put more time into that. So it became a question of how to get those books to people. A lot more digital action in terms of sales, a lot of innovation happened, but publishers have continued to thrive, books have continued to thrive. And now that we've reopened more, we're seeing people actually buy in bookstores now. After a huge swing toward digital buying, we've seen that move back a bit towards traditional bookstore buying. But regardless, people are still reading.
And it's great to see that it's not just a digital format. Although, to be fair, this magazine is printed, but it's also online. So folks don't have to be restricted to simply, if they don't have access to transportation or if they perhaps aren't near a local library. But these are out there and people can, or they can read them online. Do you have any sense as to where more people are seeing your work? Is it online or is it in the printed form?
I think a lot more people see our our print edition. We distribute 30,000 copies per issue. We do quite a bit of market research because it's a free publication. A lot of them just show up in the newspaper for people. And so we want to know, how do people react? And what we find is there is actually a very good open it rate and look at it at least, and a pretty high readership and a very high rate of brand recognition. You're helping with that. Thank you very much. Letting people know about it so that when they see it, it won't be just look like advertising to them, because it's not. It's a legit magazine with stories. It's not a sell. Obviously, coming from the publishers, the hope is that you'll read about these books and find enough interest to maybe read some of them. But in and of itself, the magazine is meant to be its own product and something you'll want to read. And we do, what we have found through that market research is that brand recognition is actually very high for a free product. And being around 30 years obviously helps that. And we have a loyal following out there, but we're always trying to reach more and more and new people, obviously.
And happy to hear that, because everyone's talked about the demise of every other medium once a new medium comes along. You know, how traditional media gives way to, but, the printed word, the fact that you can read a book on your own time, in your own space. It's just something that's, it's not a surprise that has an endearing and long-standing future. So when it comes to talking about and writing about and promoting books about environmentalism, I think that's a fair comment. How do you decide which ones make it, which ones need to be highlighted? Obviously, you have some help here from journalist Erica Butler, someone I've spoken with many times over the years, who has a deep passion for this. So tell me a little bit about what you hope will come from this awareness.
I think, our agenda is not about any given issue. It's about books here, but it's something I noticed as an editor when I first started going through the catalogs for this season, that there was a lot of books focusing on environment in various ways. There were poetry books about with environmental themes. There's always nature poetry, but also contemplating them in deeper ways about humanity's place within the natural world, what we're doing to it, what that relationship means, how we try to segregate ourselves from it, but it's not really possible because we are part of the natural world, no matter how big our brains get. There's philosophy books, there's political books that analyze the politics of climate change and the climate movement, and what can be done about that. To improve what we're doing or reduce our impact on the climate going forward, and hopefully adapt to the, because we have already done a lot of damage. So there's and there's novels. So that's fiction books. So there's books of all genres addressing it in different ways, but there's a lot of them, more than I had ever seen before. And so I thought, well, this is a theme, this is a trend that we're seeing, and I think that's a result of heightened environmental awareness, and along with that, heightened eco-anxiety. People are really worried, as they should be. There's a lot to worry about. But as Erica Butler points out in her piece, there's a lot to celebrate just in the existence of this planet and the beauty of this planet. And it's important to do a bit of both and to find, even in the politics, the sources of hope. And the sources of hope come from coming up with action plans and ways that we can do things differently and a different kind of politics moving forward. So it's important to have that knowledge. So I think even reading Erica's piece is educational, going beyond that and reading some of those books. And then we close the piece with a further reading list, which has both new and old books. So the way I approach a piece like that is I send a writer like Erica, who has knowledge in the subject, a long list of books to choose from. And I said, I will get you as many of these as I can. And Erica ultimately chooses which ones resonate with her as a person who writes a lot about environment. And then she ends up choosing where the focus goes. But that piece focuses on 7 different books. So she's obviously a person who is eager to read a lot about those things.
A variety of sources, and that's what makes up a good argument. A number of sources that you can quote or at least reference, and then at least you're coming from a place of information. There's so much opinion. I mean, and this kind of ironic coming from me, someone who's considered in some ways in Saltwire as an opinion journalist, or some might even argue not even a journalist. But the idea is that to have strong opinions, that should be based on fact. And the folks that are putting these books together, the authors of these books, the ones who are writing the poems, they have a very unique perspective, and it's important to highlight and share that. And I guess, to go back to that first primary goal about promoting books, how important is this time of the year to the book selling industry?
The fall season is probably the biggest one, and it leads into the Christmas rush, obviously, and that's when the bulk of books are sold heading into the holiday season. And we follow the issue with a more consumer-focused campaign with a holiday guide, which goes to the 4 Atlantic provinces, slightly different in each province, depending, just focused on the local authors in each province. And the idea of that guide, it's available in all bookstores, and that any Christmas shopper out there, or anyone shopping for whatever reason, they can go in the store and they can use it to help them find the local books, because that's our market research shows people really want to support local authors and publishers, but they don't always know how to identify. They can't necessarily tell the difference between a local author and an American author, for example. So this helps identify the local books in the genre of their interest, and identify books that will be suitable as a gift. So that's a huge buying season. So this is definitely the biggest one. Spring is another big one. Spring and fall are kind of the 2 big rushes for the year, and that's when most of the new books come out. But fall is even bigger than spring often.
Yeah, those guides remind me of the scholastic book list used to get in school and elementary school. And it was always an exciting time. And I think a lot of our passion for books and for writers and authors, I think, came from that, or at least for myself and others. And as you point out, this magazine is available online. People can read it. The print edition is slightly different. And in the effort to be fully disclose, there's a piece in there that I had a piece of time, or piece of a conversation I had with former talk show host Rick Howe about his situation, about his new book. And, I certainly am grateful for the opportunity to help, share his work and, keep this conversation going, because it is important. I, have had a lot of opportunity to interview authors, and this is something, again, I think deserves our attention, and it deserves the attention of something as powerful as this compendium of stories about and the stories of the books that people are writing. And it's an exciting time. It really is.
Yeah, when we talk about the politics of anything, often the words these days, evidence-based, is used. Well, that's what books are. They're evidence, because they're carefully researched and thought out and written by experts. So that's what the magazine is really about. It's about books, but it's also about ideas and having interesting, informed conversations.
Well, I want to wish you well, because as it introduces us in this article, the news release specifically was that you are the editor, but I know on your social media you'd mentioned you're going back to the environmentalism that you had been a part of in years gone past. Is it Ecology Action Center?
Yes, I'm going to be the new energy coordinator starting next week, focused on energy efficiency. So, and that's very much focused on greenhouse gas reduction. So it's part of the climate team there. And yeah, it's kind of a former career or life for me. I'll still be writing and thinking a lot of the same things and telling the same kind of stories I've always done. But it's speaking of eco anxiety. Well, I worry about the future. I worry about the planet that we're leaving my kids and their kids, if they one day have any, and thinking, I should be doing something about that, and committing myself more to that work. So that calling never left me, and the opportunity came up with Ecology Action Center, and I applied, and they kindly hired me to give that a shot. So that's my new life starting next week.
Well, congratulations on that, and thank you for your thoughts on what's happening in the industry moving forward. I know I'm going to be talking to you from the perspective your new job moving forward. Glad to have this opportunity. And we'll remind people that there's a free copy of this magazine available at the library or a bookstore near you, or obviously it may have been an insert in your Saltwire product, or perhaps you can go find one online. Just view it there.
AtlanticBooks.ca.
AtlanticBooks.ca. Chris Benjamin, it's a treat again to connect, and thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much, Sheldon. Appreciate it.